Beverly Hills emergency.
Yes.
What's the problem?
Someone killed my parents.
Were they shot?
Yes.
They were shot?
Yes.
Eric and Lyle Menendez, the infamous brothers. The murders of both their mother and father seem beyond comprehension.
Burst through the doors, and I started firing.
I was just firing as I went into the room. I just started firing.
In what direction?
In front of me.
What was in front of you?
My parents.
These kids love their parents. And you don't kill your parents if you love them unless you are forced to.
As a child, did you ever tell anybody else what had happened with your dad?
As a child, no.
Why not?
I was afraid, and my dad didn't want me to.
He told me that I was the biggest sissy and the biggest coward he had ever seen in his entire life, and that he was ashamed to have me as a son because I couldn't take the pain and I couldn't be brave.
We will prove to you that Lyle Menendez planned this murder and then set off to spend the money which he had acquired through the killings of his parents. Why did you need to buy a Rolex watch 4 days after your parents were killed?
I didn't need to.
I was disinherited. I was out of the will. I'm just a normal kid.
Oh, Eric, you're a normal kid who killed your parents.
Yeah, I know.
On paper, the Menendez clan was what many considered to be a model family. They seemed to have it all. José Menendez was born in Havana, Cuba, but at the age of 16, he and his family escaped the revolution and started a new life in the United States. José went to university and got an accounting degree he would soon put to good use when he started working. In 1963, he married Mary Louise Anderson, who everyone knew as Kitty, and the couple had 2 sons, Lyle, born in 1968, and Eric, who came along 2 years later. José was hardworking, and as he climbed the corporate ladder, the family was financially comfortable. Things were never tight at the Menendez home, and Eric and Lyle had everything a kid would ever ask for. In 1986, José Menendez was offered a $1 million a year job at Live Entertainment, and the family made the move to Beverly Hills. Just like with many picture-perfect families, many say things were not as happy as they seemed. José was strict and very demanding with his sons. He wanted Lyle and Eric to go to college and follow his steps in becoming successful businessmen. However, neither Lyle nor Eric had an itch for academia. Lyle was accepted to Princeton but suspended while he was caught cheating on a test, and Eric's grades were average, although he did have an interest in tennis. His son's lack of interest in studies and business made José furious. But the real family drama started when Lyle and Eric got into the habit of breaking into their neighbors' houses and stealing from them. Neither of them needed the money. Their father's $1 million salary was more than enough to pay for clothes and cars, but they found thrill in breaking into houses and stealing watches, jewelry, and other expensive goods. Eventually they got caught, and when this happened, José asked Eric to take the blame, since he was still underage. This way, Lyle, who was already over 18, would avoid any prison time. He then paid off the neighbors to drop the charges. José was trying to protect his family's reputation, but Lyle and Eric were learning a lesson they would use shortly after. Money could get you wherever you wanted, including out of trouble. José was disappointed. Not only were his sons failing to pursue business, they were now putting their lives in danger, stealing thousands of dollars from the neighbors. This pushed him to make a decision. He told his sons he was going to cut them out of his will. This was one of the last things he would ever do. On August 20th, 1989, José and Kitty Menendez were dozing off on the couch while watching TV. It was the evening, and their sons were out at the movies. Suddenly, someone broke into their house and killed them both with a shotgun. Jose was shot in the back of the head while he was asleep. Kitty tried to run away and was brutally shot as she did.
Beverly Hills emergency.
Yes, police.
What's the problem? What's the problem? What's the problem?
Someone killed my parents.
Pardon me? Who? Are they still there?
Yes.
The people...
No.
Were they shot?
Hey, man,
Were they shot?
Yes.
They were shot?
Yes.
722 North Elmont.
What happened?
I have a hysterical person on. We're trying to get things further. Other units responding. Is the person still there?
What happened? We have units around. What happened? Who shot who? I don't hear anything. I just came home. You came home and found who shot? Mom and Dad.
You know if they're still in the house, the people that did the shooting.
Get away from him. Okay. Hey, let me talk to Eric. Who is the person that was shot? My mom and my dad. Your mom and dad? My mom and my dad. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, we're on our way over there with an ambulance. Okay, I gotta go. Okay. Hello. Hello, this is police department. Yes. Okay, I want you to come outside. Okay, just come out the front door and my brother.
Lyle was the one who called emergency services in distress. When the police got there, they found the two brothers completely broken down and scared. The crime scene was a mess. There was blood everywhere, there were things knocked over, and Jose and Kitty Menendez lay dead on the floor. Kitty's face was barely recognizable. When questioned by the police, nothing pointed the finger at Lyle and Eric. They were two rich white men whose equally rich white parents had just been brutally murdered. The brothers mentioned their father was in business with the mafia, and they were sure it had been them who had committed this terrible crime. Nothing suggested the killers were sitting on the house's front steps when they got there, so police never searched them for evidence. They just let them go. Jose and Kitty Menendez's funeral was held days after the murder, and Eric and Lyle attended looking solemn and broken. However, some witnesses say that away from the cameras, the two brothers even joked around about their parents' deaths. As soon as they received their parents' finances and properties, including the $14 million estate they lived in, Eric and Lyle Menendez began living like kings. They'd constantly go shopping for luxury items, cars, watches, clothes. They threw parties, they started businesses, everything. Eric hired a professional tennis coach who helped him train for competitions all over the world. Lyle, on the other hand, bought several restaurants and took trips overseas. Police began to get suspicious. This reckless spending didn't seem to be a normal way to grieve. The lack of leads in the alleged mafia story made investigators begin to piece together other theories as to who could be behind Jose and Kitty's murder. These theories would soon be confirmed by Eric himself, the youngest of the two brothers. Eric's mental health was quickly plummeting. He was depressed, he lost a lot of weight, and avoided spending time with others. His actions were starting to catch up with him. In a moment of desperation, Eric decided to visit his old therapist, Dr. Jerome Oziel, and after a few sessions, Eric admitted to Oziel that he and Lyle had indeed been the ones to kill their parents. Some of these conversations were recorded on tape, including the confession. When Lyle found out Eric had confessed, he threatened to kill Oziel if he ever told anyone. But Oziel's mistress already knew about the crimes, and the police was soon after the recordings. On March 8th of 1990, nearly 7 months after murdering their parents, Lyle was arrested while he was on the way to lunch with some friends. Eric was away at a tennis tournament in Israel, and knowing his brother had been arrested and that there was a warrant out for his own arrest, he traveled back and turned himself in 3 days later. The defense initially tried to play the non-guilty card, fighting hard to keep the tapes out of the evidence. However, after 3 years of fighting, the tapes were admitted, and Lyle and Eric had no other option but to plead guilty. However, they weren't going to give up that easily. Lyle and Eric Menendez claimed they killed their parents in self-defense. They stated that for years, Kitty and Jose abused them physically and mentally. But there was no evidence of this abuse, and the prosecutor fought hard to prove that the real motive behind the Menendez brothers' actions was greed. The Menendez brothers' case became a full media circus. Cameras were placed in the courtroom, something that was beginning to be a trend in the 90s. The almost minute-to-minute TV broadcast of the Beverly Hills murder was something that attracted the attention of viewers all across the United States, but it also interfered in the way the trial played out. Leslie Abramson, the defense attorney, turned the trial into a soap opera that had everyone hooked to their TVs. She was aggressive, ruthless, and fought with the means necessary to try and shift the focus from her clients onto anything else that could prove that they had not murdered their parents in cold blood.
Didn't you say you were secreting yourself at the home of Judalon Smith after October 31st? That's why you sent your wife and kids away, right?
Counsel,
Mr. Burt might have questioned very differently had he known that she had this little bomb to drop.
Letters, excuse me. You wrote letters stating...
Excuse me.
Is there an objection, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor. Now we're getting into multiple hearsay going in the other
Right.
day. Now, I didn't ask you what you stated yesterday. I'm asking you when was it?
Excuse me, Your Honor.
All right, let's not argue with the witness. If there's an objection...
Her strategy was always to portray the brothers as victims by bringing in witnesses who confirmed Jose's authoritarian parenting style. The prosecution focused on proving that Lyle was the mastermind behind the crime and he had manipulated Eric into helping him. They had gone into the home while their parents watched TV, killed Jose first while he was dozing off, and then gone for their mother, who ran away as she heard the shots. At one point, while chasing Kitty, they ran out of ammo, so they reloaded in the car and went back into the house to finish the job. Their mother was dead soon after that, and her face was completely disfigured. These details were in the tapes Dr. Aziel recorded, but there was no mention of abuse. Leslie Abramson took it upon herself to discredit all of the prosecution's witnesses. Craig Signorelli was one of Eric's close friends, and he testified against his friend and told the jury Eric had confessed the crime to him in confidence. The defense didn't like that and tried to discredit him because he never reported to the police that Eric had confessed.
Now, didn't you guys play mind games with each other all the time?
Yes.
It was an aspect of your friendship, wasn't it?
That's why I said it could have happened to the police, because I wasn't sure at the time if what he was telling me the truth, and I did not want to be the one to turn him in.
So you didn't know if he was playing a mind game or not?
That's correct.
Another key witness was Dr. Aziel, Eric's therapist, who said after talking to both brothers about the crime, he observed that Eric wanted to get it over with as quick as possible, while Lyle wanted to plan out every detail to perfection. He didn't think there was any abuse, but the brothers definitely hated their parents, particularly their father. Their mother had been killed so as not to leave any witnesses behind. The defense took the same road as before, and tried to discredit the therapist's credibility by accusing him of being a cheater.
Is that how you felt? Imminent danger of murder at the hands of Eric and Lyle Menendez?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And you didn't seek to be with your wife and children, to look over them at this time of great danger?
My fear was that that Eric and Lyle might that evening have come looking for me. They knew where I lived, and I was afraid that if in fact in some way they could have followed me to where I was, they would have found me with my wife and children. The reason I stayed away from my wife and children was specifically to be protective of them.
So instead you went to Miss Smith's and put her, based on what you're telling us, in danger. Isn't that what you did? Did you ever mention your girlfriend to Eric and Lyle Menendez?
No, I hadn't.
Did you have any reason to believe that they even knew that you had a girlfriend?
By the way, the word girlfriend is your characterization, but no, I didn't have any reason to believe.
Would you be more comfortable with the word lover?
It was true. Aziel was having an affair with one of his patients. However, she too had heard Lyle threaten Aziel if he ever told anyone about the crime. In another turn of events, Lyle took the stand as a witness for Eric's alleged abuse and explained, in between tears, how his father took advantage of him and his brother for years.
What did he tell you about telling people?
He just said that it was our secret.
that bad things would happen to me if I told anybody. And I told him I never would.
Eric also went into detail about these horrific events and insisted it was still going on at the age of 17.
What do you believe was the originating cause of you and your brother ultimately winding up shooting your parents?
Me telling.
You telling what?
Me telling Lyle that,
You telling Lyle what? Was it you telling Lyle about something that was happening?
my dad.
Okay.
My dad.
Were there times when, following one of these episodes with your father, you'd be crying?
Yes.
Did your mother ever come upon you when you were crying?
Sometimes after these, I have to go downstairs to dinner, or afterwards, and she would come when she'd see me crying, and,
Did she ever ask you, Eric, what are you crying about?
No.
These testimonies brought tears out among the jury. However, the prosecution was not convinced, and analyzing the evidence, they found another possible angle that motivated the crime. This time, it shifted the perception that Lyle was the mastermind, and it placed Eric as the brains behind the murders. The prosecution claimed they had physical evidence that Eric may have been gay, and they had reason to believe Jose could have found out and not been happy about it. In fear of being cut out of the will and the family money, Eric had planned to execute the perfect crime with the help of his brother. But the prosecution's weakness was money. The defense put millions of dollars into bringing experts and witnesses to the stand to confirm the brothers were telling the truth about the house of horrors they grew up in. However, the prosecution didn't have that kind of money. So at this point, it was up to the jury to decide whether or not they believed a story of two broken sons who were tired of their parents' abuse, or two spoiled, greedy brothers who were afraid of losing family money. Although the case was treated as one, each brother had a separate trial and jury. The jury assigned to Eric Menendez's trials deliberated for over 2 weeks, and as the prosecution was dreading, they came back hung. A week later, Lyle's jury also came back hung.
I find that the jury is hopelessly deadlocked, and the court declares a mistrial.
The incredibly public trial raised all sorts of opinions, but the hung jury infuriated many who said the Menendez brothers were clearly giving out rehearsed statements about events that never took place. But it was once again Leslie Abramson who became the focus of all attention. Her ruthless defense strategy was all the media talked about, and she was loving the recognition. However, it wasn't just her interviews that raised eyebrows. After the trial was over, she had 4 of the jury members over for dinner, knowing they had voted in favor of her defense, and got them interviews themselves, as well as promising them contact with Eric and Lyle. The brothers, in the meantime, were back in jail awaiting a retrial, and this second trial was very different. O.J. Simpson's case had just reached a non-guilty verdict in front of thousands of spectators, and public murder trials were beginning to be a problem, since they interfered with the legal process itself. So for the Menendez brothers' second trial, the judge banned the cameras from the courtroom to avoid the media circus. But that's not the only thing that changed. The Menendez family money was practically gone at this point, and they could no longer afford a multi-million-dollar, ruthless defense strategy like the first time around. Lyle was appointed a public defendant, and Leslie Abramson still represented Eric, but was being paid considerably less than during the first trial. Additionally, in this second trial, Leslie was involved in a scandal that definitely affected the course of the case. She hired a psychiatrist to evaluate Eric in jail, and after he took his notes, she threatened to fire him if he didn't edit certain passages out. The psychiatrist got scared and edited the notes, but at some point the paperwork got mixed up, and the uncut version of the notes made it to the trial. When confronted about the 2 versions of the notes, the psychiatrist admitted that Leslie Abramson had asked him to change his evaluation, resulting in 2 versions of the notes. An investigation took place, but it was determined there was not enough evidence to prove that Leslie had indeed threatened the psychiatrist into changing his notes. However, her credibility definitely took a hit after that. Finally, on July 2nd of 1996, after 7 years of investigations, trials, and mistrials, the Menendez brothers were found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. In all of their appeal attempts, their sentence was upheld, and the brothers have been in prison ever since. They were sent to separate prisons until 2018, when they were reunited after 22 years, and now serve their sentence in the same housing unit of the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego, California. To this day, there are still many different theories about the Menendez brothers' story, about what's true and what isn't. Were they cold-blooded killers or victims? What do you think? Thank you for watching this video of the Back of the Archive. If you enjoy watching content like this, hit subscribe so you don't miss any new videos. I hope I see you in the next one.